In the beginning of the 2010s, in connection with the Industry 4.0 rollout, many industries were buzzing with talk about how simulation would revolutionize product development. However, to my surprise, what was often overlooked in these discussions was the crucial aspect of change management needed to make this vision a reality. Driven by curiosity, I decided to explore this gap and embarked on a journey into simulation leadership. More than 10 years later, I'm still searching for understanding. In this series, I'll be interviewing some of the most forward-looking leaders I've encountered during these years, aiming to grasp how they've successfully made change happen. This is the Simulation Leadership Podcast with me, Marcus Oledal from EDRMedeso. Today I'm at Grundfos in Denmark. Jutland is sort of the epicentrum of simulation in Europe, I would say. A lot of things is happening here. And one of the initiators of this initiative is with me today. It's Brix Jacobsen from Grundfos. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you, Marcus, and welcome to Grundfos. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much. There is a reason that we start here with you today, because back in 2013 we had the first contact and we talked about what about strategy for simulations? How does that fit in with the overall strategy and how to communicate it internally? What was it that led you to that? What has happened in the years before that? You have been here for much longer than that.
I've been with Grundfos for 27 years. So I was hired in because I had a background in simulations. I just finished my PhD in swirling flows and simulation of that. So I was hired to be the one who was leading Grundfos towards a future where simulation had a vital part. So we started up using simulation for our design purposes. And we did that for years, and we gained a lot of traction in using these tools. But at some point we thought that we need to do this more thoroughly, to spread it across different disciplines and have equal ways of doing simulations in various other disciplines. And at that time, we realized that we needed to create some kind of a strategy to put it into the companies, into the development processes in the company. So at that time, we looked for a consultant. So we found you. We have known each other for a long time, but you were interested in working with companies that was doing so. So that's why.
I remember the first time we talked, actually. I think it was back in 2004. I was invited to a meeting. And I remember I asked you the question, why on earth would you want to work together with us? Because you have all the solutions in place already. And you answered, I want to understand what the full picture looks like. And I think since then we have been very open and honest about how we talk about these things. Because it's not about the technology as such, it's how you successfully integrate it with all other activities in your company. Do we agree on that?
Yeah, definitely. So I was privileged that when I came to Grundfos, to use computers as a means to doing development has been here for many, many years. So actually when Grundfos very early adopted computers for bookkeeping, the engineers, they used the computers at nighttime to do calculations on engineering parts, so in calculating motor sizes and so on. Mm-hmm. So it has been here for many years. So we're also owned by a foundation in Grundfos, and the privilege behind that is that a lot of money is invested into doing R&D, and the CEO at that time, who was an engineer and very interested, Niels Du Jensen, was interested in new methods of gaining more insights into developing new products. So he somehow got this idea that simulation could have a positive impact. I'm not sure if it was him who came up with the idea, but at least he was really, really fast in adopting. We want to do something in this area. So.
And what happened then in 2013? Because apparently you were really heard something and you picked up on it and positioned yourself in that process.
Yeah. I got a new job at that time and I was responsible for a big part of the development, all the mechanical parts that had to be developed in Grundfos. There was a new organization, so I was put in charge of this. I brought with me people who was doing simulations on the pump parts, so there was also an equal part who was doing motor designs. What we found out was that, and it actually came from you, Marcus, that you were surprised because you were selling us the software that we used, that Grundfos had a weird split between mechanical licenses and fluid mechanical simulation licenses. So where other companies had a split of, for each 10 licenses of mechanical, you would normally sell 2 fluid mechanical. In Grundfos it was the opposite. Mm-hmm. So we had at least 20 licenses of fluid mechanical or CFD licenses, where we had only 4 or 6 of the mechanical. So we were of course looking at this and thinking there's something here that we could develop. So this first part of the strategy was actually to get simulation an integral part of doing mechanical design.
So the current position of simulation at that time was really a technology. And I think what you describe now is that it was actually a number of licenses and so on that defined it. But then, if I remember right, you picked up very early that this is like a change management thing. You really have to work it through properly. And then you spent some time on this.
Yes.
How long? What happened then from 2013 to 15 roughly?
So at that time we became very, very efficient in using simulations as a design tool, and for the pump part. So we were designing pumps and gained very, very high efficiencies by the use of simulations. What we did on the mechanical part was that it was very much based on that you built something in a CAD system, and then you made it in the workshop, and then you tested it. So it was this, design, build, test, and then you, based on that, redesigned it. On the simulation side for doing the pump part, it wasn't like that. So here we used simulations to drive the design and, optimize. And when you have done like 1,000 iterations in simulations, you built a prototype and you tested it. On the mechanical side, it was different. So here it was very often that the simulation was used at the end as a validation of what was designed to see if it was good enough, or even if you were testing for the quality to see if something was wrong or you had feedback from the market and so on. So it was a different way of using simulation. And then we realized there are 2 ways of using simulation. One is design, one is actually the validation that you do at the end. So we wanted to bring mechanical simulations to the same level. And this was a process that we realized was a change process. First of all, we didn't have the licenses. We didn't have the people with the insight. We had very few people with an education into mechanical simulations. We did have people with very high insights into this, so the potential was definitely there. So we decided to go forward because I was responsible for mechanical design, so I could easily make a decision. This is the way we want to do it. So we made the decision that we want to include more simulations into mechanical design. So we started building competences. We start using this. We looked into what were the gains. And we wanted, of course, to create a burning platform. So we came up with this, that it will become better, faster, and cheaper. So better, faster, cheaper was the 3 words that we connected with doing simulations of mechanical design. So the idea was, of course, that we could extrapolate. So as soon as we have been doing mechanical design, we will do electric design. So of Grundfos is producing pumps, integrated pumps. So we have both the pump part, the motor part, electronics, and also embedded software. And you could actually imagine that you could do simulations in all these areas. So the mechanical was actually just seen as the first step towards doing it in other areas. So that was the idea. So we wanted to create this burning platform, and part of that was looking into how can we get some funding for this. And here you gave fantastic advice to us. You need to talk numbers, because when you are talking to higher management levels, they are not necessarily engineers with a background in design and development. But they can understand that if you can have higher quality, you can save a lot of money. If you can have better products, faster innovation, then you're talking a language that is common for you. So I clearly remember this, that by introducing simulations, you had numbers from the literature that said that you could save 35% of your costs in building prototypes. You could save 15% of time compared to building prototypes, and there was various other numbers, and these numbers we just kept there as a guiding star. And we started, calculating if we get faster to market because of using simulation. Then we are talking huge amount of money. The faster you get to the market, there's nothing that can beat the speed of innovation. The earlier you start earning money on your inventions, the better. So
I think what made the difference, I remember this discussion very well, was that we looked into a specific project, and I asked, could you save 16 weeks on this project? And you said yes. And I said, will you stand up and say this to upper management and say what is the cost saving? Yes. And I mean, that was some bravery back then. And I think you had some iterations, but after sometimes you started to hit that goal quite quickly, if I remember right.
Yeah, for sure. We showed that we could do development much faster, and this was a big game. And of course, when you start doing this, you become fast in doing your development. You realize that there are other areas where you haven't gained a speed up. So we also realized that we need to do, for instance, simulations in production equipment. So now at Grundfos, we're also doing simulations in how you line up your production equipment, how you do your producing equipment and all of that. So you can actually take this usage of simulation and take it all the way throughout the pipeline that you have throughout your development project.
So today at Grundfos, you actually use simulation for design exploration, for design, for verification, validation, and for manufacturing.
Yes.
And even maybe the next step, how to use it out in the field. Have you considered that part?
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. So a lot of the things that has come up within the past 10 years is the IoT thing, that you want your devices to be connected out in the world. So you also want to harvest data, and you want to have a look at the data and then find out how the usage is of the products that you send into the market and so on. And here you actually, of course, you can add. Today we are talking AI and machine learning, that you envision that you can build on top of all the data that you will harvest. But what is super efficient to build in together with that is actually your simulation tools. So you can use your simulation as a kind of synthetic data on top of your real data, because you have insights how you build your simulation. You have insights into how your products are running. And that knowledge is super vital when you want to have efficient AI usage. So that is some of the next thing that we are doing right now, and we'll be doing much more of in the future.
Did you know that, I know we are using the same slide with the strategic simulation adoption, and then you have the chasm.
Yes.
When you are like 10-12% of all companies are using it in a strategic way, then you hit some interesting challenges maybe. Mm-hmm. But I looked at an NVIDIA report from 2021, I think it was, and their prediction about synthetic data development. According to that prediction, it would take off like 24, 25, which is now. So all these things are now happening in sync. What do you think will come out of this when we see this change of the synthetic data value of simulation as a tool being used strategically to make business and enable new business? Where do you think all this will take us?
Yeah, the interesting part, so we used simulation as a validation for the products that you build. In the future, simulation will also be a validation of the AI algorithm, the signal processing, the insights that you get from the real world and for the data that you have acquired for your connected products. Then you use simulation to see what is right and what is wrong in the data. So the role for simulations is kind of the same. Before it was looking into what did you design, and the next thing will be how will the product behave in the real world. So, qualifying your AI algorithm and calibrating them with the use of simulation. So again, it's a speed up of what you see and the insights that you gain. It's a new world, but still the role of simulation will be there. So
I fully agree, and I think it can even be strengthened, because all of this, the synthetic data apparently must have a value in itself, and the simulation people are creating a lot of data. which causes some challenges for companies really working with PLM and all that. They think they can put the same simulation data in the system and it breaks a couple of things. How do you think this will develop? I think this is really a challenge for many companies these days.
I am really sure that there's not many companies in the world who's actually really sure of how they will use the data that they can get out there, how they can combine the data with what they have of insights within the company, how they can build digital twins. I'm not very fond of the word because digital twin is used all over the place. So when I'm talking digital twin, it has something to do with simulation. Others would say a digital twin is just the representation of how it was built originally. But I do believe that there will be much more insights into how the product is behaving. And you need to find ways to extract data, to also aggregate data based on what you see. So you need to have the data available. You need to make them present somehow. So if you just store data, there's no use of it. So you need to bring it alive. And I guess that is also where the big gains in the future will be, the use of the data.
So where do you think we will be in? I mean, so many things have happened in 10 years, but what will happen in the next 10 years? Do you see any obvious things that have to change?
What is interesting when I look back is that simulation has primarily been driven by Moore's law. So the availability of more and more compute power, that has driven simulation from being something that was an academic discipline to something that is super, super useful in industry. But I believe in the future we'll see a shift. There will be hopefully new ways of doing calculations coming up that will increase this, maybe even tilting Moore's law. I'm not saying quantum computers, but for sure there'll be some innovations that will change that. And then if suddenly simulations will be available as much more for everyone or to a much, much broader extent, that will change a lot. And then there's also things that puzzles me. Being in a company that has used simulation to such an extent as we have done here in our design of products and innovation, I don't understand why there's not an explosion in other companies using this. I have seen big companies, who is selling worldwide, who's not using simulation actually. And if they use simulation, it's not for design, it's just for the validation or their quality insurance or even looking at troubleshooting when something goes south. So why is it that we haven't seen this massive use of simulation in small, medium-sized companies? Why is it that we haven't seen that it's being used broadly? This is really something that I'm interested in, and I think we share that, you as a salesperson, of course, but also from an academic perspective. Why is it that there's such a step for companies to start using simulations? So
maybe that connects very nicely with the tipping point theory, that we are getting close to it when this happens. And I'm pretty sure it will happen soon. Then there will be a really change in competitiveness for companies who are in the forefront and companies who are laggards. Of course, depending on what kind of industry you are in and so on. But isn't that a reasonable hypothesis that the tipping point is not here yet? That's why we experience this.
So when we did this simulation strategy in Grundfos, there was a word that we used very heavily. That was a democratization of simulation. So we had this idea that we could educate a very high degree of the development engineers into using simulations. We educated them. We built tools so that by the click of a button they could use simulations. But also this, that they had the insights into what simulations could do for them. But we realized that we still needed to have departments with highly specialized people who was actually driving this. The whole idea about this being democratized for everyone, that was a dream. We haven't got there yet. And I guess when we get there, that this will become so easy that people can just do it in a very easy way, then it will gain some traction.
Now, if you look back on the last 10 years, what's the main learnings that you have taken out from the experience you made?
I think the main learnings, there are a couple. So first of all, I'm very sure that now there are two kinds of simulation, if there's not three. So the first one is, of course, the exploration that you can do. But the most important is this design simulation. And at Grundfos, it started with design simulation. The other thing is these validations that you need to do on product level and also on production level. So that is one thing, that you have these different categories of simulation. So when you're talking with other people who is doing simulation, you need to ask that as one of the first questions. How are you using simulations? What is the purpose in your company for using simulations? The other thing is this about the democratization of simulation, because of course you want people with less insight into simulation to use simulation and have all the positive effects of being fast and being good and saying I'm doing a good design. It's verified now. So what we have done in Grundfos to mitigate that is that we are building these tools. So a lot of the designs that we do, they are. So we build these tools where people from the CAD system can push a button, then it runs the simulation, and it brings you the result in an easy, understandable way, not in colors or in very specific graphs and so on, but very simple insights. This is a green lamp, so it's okay, it's good. So that at least is important. So you need to democratize somehow. The last part is what is really, really important, and that is the change management around it. So, because it's not only about engineers and designers and people building production setups and so on. It's also that you need to have the people in other areas of the company have a view on simulation as something that is for the benefit of different areas. So we actually also using simulations for some of our sales tools today. So when we are selling wastewater treatment equipment for wastewater treatment plants or for water intakes for large freshwater plants and so on, we're doing simulations to show how the pumps will work or the mixers will work in the environment. So here it becomes a sales tool. But this about that you need to convince people that simulations are safe. I've been joking with this, that there is a saying among people that do simulations that nobody believes in the simulation except for the guy who's doing the simulation. Everyone believes in the test except for the guy who's doing the test. And it is interesting. It's only a few weeks ago I was in a meeting with people from the board, and I was asked the question, what is the accuracy of your simulation? So there's this nervousness around, can we trust the simulation? Nobody would ask the question, what is the accuracy of the testing that we're doing? Because if it passed the test, then it's qualified, it's okay, it's right. Mm-hmm. Nobody actually asked, yeah, but how did you test, and was the test correct? Or are you sure you can trust your measurements? So, and that is something that has really been a thing for us to get rid of this. So we don't need to qualify the simulations every time we say that this is based on simulations. You shouldn't raise the question, can you believe in simulation? Of course you can. So we have so many years of insights into using simulations. So we're using simulations in areas where you could never do anything if you didn't use simulations. So
I'm glad you're bringing this up, because this is why we meet at Simulation Leadership Forum every year, and where Grundfos and you and your colleagues in particular has been very engaged. Even though you're in the forefront, you go there because there will always be some inspiration from other companies to understand how can you drive change, how can you make more success for your company. No matter if it's shortened development cycles or coming or responding to market changes or whatever it is, there are new learnings every time we meet at the Simulation Leadership Forum. By the way, this podcast series is actually to make something happening in between the forums, because they only happen once per year. And next time, it's in Copenhagen. It's on August 27 and 28 in 2025. I hope you will be there, Christian, and your team.
I will.
You are much welcome. And with that, I would like to really thank you, Christian, for a very inspiring and very good conversation around simulation leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.